Hello, and welcome to the Cleveland International Film Festival post-film slam streams conversation for MDUDU Boy. My name is Eric Siler, and I'm a professor of film, media arts, and communication from Cleveland State University, as well as moderator for this conversation. We are very pleased to be joined by the director of MDUDU Boy, Ella Smith. Ella is an Emmy Award-winning British actress and filmmaker. She won Best Actress for her leading role in Ray and Liz in Buenos Aires International Film Festival in 2019. She's currently filming a series in which she is the lead role of a show called The Nevers. It's a brand new TV show which premieres on HBO in 2021. Can't wait to hear more about that. As a filmmaker, Ella's debut award-winning short MDUDU Boy, filmed in Kenya in 2015, premiered at the Palm Springs premiered at Palm Springs and also at the Toronto International Film Festival. So without further ado, hello, Ella, and welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here to be talking about film, especially films that isn't shot in our own country, you know?
That's great. It's so great to have you, and I'm glad that you can join us. Ella, for all of you, is joining us from London, England. I'm glad that you can join us today. So this film, very interesting. It's about soccer. It's called football, and other parts of the world. Are you a former soccer player? How did you come about to make this film and also make it in Kenya?
Yeah, well, I'm not a football fan in terms of soccer, so I'm going to keep saying soccer so that everyone understands what I'm talking about. So I'm not really into soccer as much as your average Joe, but having been to Kenya, I saw how universal it was as a language where the kids are playing sport, you know? And sometimes when you're a bit younger, you don't know how to communicate with your peers and people around you, new people, but playing sport with people seems to be a really lovely bonding experience. If you're new to a group and you play a bit of sport and rough and tumble, it seems to be that's a kind of easy way and a code for being accepted. And that's sort of part of the story of MDUDU Boy in terms of how he's been set apart from the rest of the group of boys. And so I was there just about a year before making this film, and I wrote a short story inspired by a boy that I met there. And then a producer picked up the film and wanted to make it. And so we set about the difficult task of going to Kenya and making a short film. And we'd never done it before. So we learned a lot along the way.
I see. So, okay, you had the idea, you got a producer, you decided to go to Kenya. How long were you in Kenya, and how many days of shooting did it take to actually make this in Kenya?
Sure. So we did a lot of the prep from London, you know, making sure we had the crew and the art department was all set up and we had a lot of people ready to arrive. But all in all, it took about 2.5 to 3 weeks. We flew out. We had about 3 or 4 days to cast it. We had no cast when we got on the plane. So I had to cast with local street kids and local adults and professionals there. Not many of the cast had any acting experience before, so it was up to me to kind of work with people and use their talents and their kind of raw talents. And we had about 5 days to cast it, another 2 days-ish to recce the locations and find locations that worked. That was more finalizing locations. We had a list, and then we shot for about 3.5 days of full-on photography with the camera and the crew. And then obviously we all eventually packed up, flew back to England, and we did the post-production there, which took several weeks. Obviously you have the edit, which happened in LA. I was living in LA at the time. And then you had the music and all those lovely fine details that kind of layer to make the film what it is. And even we had some green screen. I don't know if any of your students saw the magical green screen moment in the film where inside the sticker, the football player slightly smiles. That's Victor Wanyama, the famous soccer player from Kenya. And we actually worked with him on green screen to put him in the sticker. So there was a little...
That's fascinating. How did you get Victor Wanyama to appear in this film?
So Victor was a really good sport because we were kind of nobodies at this point, and our producer reached out to him and said, look, we're making this film, we have the support of all these kind of big names in film, like Danny Boyle had got behind us and various other people that I worked with over the years. And we asked him, would you be prepared to shoot a tiny bit of green screen work with us, you know, leading up to going out in the film? And he very kindly said yes. And he knew that the profits for the film were going back to the charities that we were working with. And so he saw that it was a good project. He himself does a lot of project and has started a football academy in Kenya himself. So we had about 3 hours with him after training one day, and he came in really achy, said he just finished a sports massage and, you know, literally still covered in mud from having been on the field. And we shot with a bit of green screen for him, and I asked for various reactions, and subtle ones and not so subtle ones, and he was a really good sport. So we had that footage in the can about a month before we even went to Kenya, because we needed to mock up some art shots as well of him in the sticker. So that was done.
That's okay. That's good. That's really, really great planning to make that work. Let's talk a little bit about the casting. How did you do the casting call, and how did you settle on the actual cast that you used for this film?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we were really felt passionate about was, you know, we're going to make a film in a country. It's not our country. We have great respect for it, but we're not going to start imposing on a country what the people should be like, or what the, you know, if we brought actors from the UK to be in Kenya, I don't think it would have sat right, and I don't think it would have felt like an authentic film. So I had to sort of believe in what we could find, and what we did find was an amazing array of cast, young, talented kids who'd never acted before. And so I went into various charitable organizations that work with children and sports. I went into local schools and I ran workshops, like acting workshops, really, which was interesting because, you know, they speak Swahili, they speak a bit of English, but it was a challenge. And I was looking out for some special performances from people. And interestingly, children, when they're young, I think if they're acting, they can be quite over the top, you know, quite big. If they want to show an emotion, they really show it. But we were kind of looking for someone who was doing less. Because on film, when you're shooting, you know, especially a close up, if they're acting on an emotion, you can tell straight away. So we were looking for quite a shy kid, especially to play MDUDU Boy. And we found this wonderful young actor, Baraka, who was known as Pee Wee. Everyone called him Pee Wee. And he was just excellent. And in terms of the adult roles, I was literally walking into market squares and talking to people and saying, I saw a big group of guys who were smoking outside a computer shop, and I was like, hey, I'm making a film, can we talk about who could, you know, be in it, and who could talk about football? And so it was very fluid, and it was very like, well, we just have to cast and go. We had cast someone in the role of the captain of the football team, a young boy who on the day showed up and he just didn't want to do it. He was terrified, and we couldn't wait. So we bumped up one of the smaller parts to his part, and he ended up playing the captain and was fantastic. So he rescued us. So you have to be willing to go with the flow if you have a cast who've never acted before, and you have to champion them and tell them they can do it rather than micromanage their performance, you know, because you can get something real.
It's exactly. I thought the cast worked really well, and the boy's sister, she was really good too. You actually believe that they were actually brother and sister. Like, you need to do this before you get a whack.
Absolutely. Yeah, and funnily enough, she had those intentions anyway, because the youngest girl, so Florea was the youngest, and then Antonina was the big sister, and they were real life sisters. So it was very funny because they really did have that. Funnily enough, they had that dynamic. So they would be cuddling in bed, and then we would say cut, and one would thump the other. So we had a great amount of attitude anyway, you know.
Right. I was wondering if there was any real relationship between the families. So that's good to know that the boy fit right in with that chemistry there too. I just want to remind everyone, we're talking to the director of MDUDU Boy, Ella Smith. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll get to them as time allows. Let's talk a little bit more about the specifics of the story. Okay, this Boy feels like he has this love for soccer, and he magically, or divinely gets the soccer ball, and now he wants to play with the others. But we don't know how it ends. Why did you decide to end the film like that, have an open ending to the film?
I mean, we don't know how it ends. However, the very last frame, you see the goat in the captain's shirt. And he has said in it, if you manage to score, I'll give you my shirt, which I haven't taken off for 100 years or whatever. So I think we can assume that he did well, but we actually shot it as in he scored the goal, and we had the footage of him successfully, achieving his goal. And yet the suspense of, sometimes in film, showing a lot is great, and sometimes showing absolutely nothing can really jolt you into thinking, well, and make you realize you're in suspense. Sometimes you don't know you're in suspense until something stops. And if you go to black in film, sometimes the audience gets to check in with their emotion. And that can be applied to very sad scenes. It can be applied to like comedic moments, and it can certainly be applied to suspense. And I think, this big build up, we then move into slow motion for the final moment, and the bird's flapping and he's running up to the ball, and everyone's willing this kid to do well. And actually not showing the audience what happened for a brief moment in time, I think is really fun. And so once we committed to not showing him scoring, and just hinted to he probably did score because the goat is wearing the shirt. And actually, Doodoo Boy's not even present in that last shot. His sister is, but his victory looms over that last shot, and then we cut and finish the film. So I think most people would assume he did well.
Okay, yes, that's what I kind of assumed too. We have a couple questions that have come in. One question is the living, were those the real living conditions of those children in Kenya? So I guess they want to know, was that a real set, or were those the real houses? Or can you talk a little bit more about
we
that?
didn't have any sets, because if you go to Kenya, you're authentically going into environments where people live like that, So yeah, absolutely. Every single space that we filmed in was authentic and local to Kenya. We had an art director who, for example, in their hut, MDUDU's hut, it was very dirty and very basic, and you get that, that's a kind of normal life scenario there. But she said, what, I'd really, really love to paint the walls yellow. And I said, talk to me about this. And she said, yeah, they have very little, but they're a family and there's warmth there. And she knows how color can impact film. And funnily enough, when we came to shoot it, even just the fact that there was a bit of color in their space, albeit what, made to look like it's sort of not at its best. But she intuitively, and that's why, work with people who are brilliant, because she, it's her job to fill the screen with things that help the story. And she had a very good reason to paint those walls yellow and scuff them up again. Because when you look at the film, if it had just been the hot, dirty color, I think it might have almost been trying to sort of pull the audience down in too much of a negative direction, because it's not true that being poor equals, or having very little means there's a lack of heart, a lack of character, a lack of ambition, a lack of life. And so we shot in very real locations. And sometimes there's actually, maybe I'll send it to you. There's a video of behind the scenes making of Doodoo Boy online. I think it's on Vimeo, but it might be on our website. And you can see, we're shooting in one direction in a town where he runs down a street. And when you turn and see, there's a whole village of people watching, as in 200 people just watching us make this film, being incredibly polite and silent so we could get the shot. And so there was a real sense that the community was there watching this exciting thing happen in their town.
That's great. And the location, the house that you shot in, did that belong to one of the cast members, or is this something you found in your scouting?
It didn't belong to, but they're very similar situations.
Yeah.
So like Baraka, he wouldn't mind me saying this, Pee-wee, who plays Doodoo Boy, he lived in a hut down by a river where he slept on a hammock every night. He had a nice hammock up in the rafters, and it's very basic in terms of what you're used to in a developed Western world that we have now and our privilege. There's nothing like going to somewhere like Kenya and seeing how the conditions really are more of a challenge than you could think for them to live, and yet the people are some of the friendliest, nicest, kindest, warmest people you'll ever meet.
Absolutely. Yes, I was able to spend some time in Kenya. I shared with you before we began. So yes, the people are very nice, very friendly. Another question we have coming in is, what is the significance of using goats in the film? So you
Oh,
had,
okay. Sure. Well, go to everywhere in Kenya. So, we have dogs and cats in England. In Kenya, it's more useful to have a goat because you can milk them, you can eat them, and that's just you can trade them. And so, a lot of people have goats there. And so, in this film, for Dudu Boy, it signified there's a bigger goat and a smaller goat. And the idea is that the bigger goat was always bullying the smaller goat. And so he kept giving little pep talks to the smaller goat, like, stand up for yourself, you can eat first if you want, you just got to stand up for yourself. And really that was about his relationship with himself. He's trying to tell himself, stand up to the big boys who don't let you play football. It's a kind of inner messaging that he doesn't quite realize it's about himself, but in the moment he's very focused on the goat getting the food and not bullied by the bigger goat. So those two things, the fact it's every part of Swahili Kenyan lifestyle there, and also the fact that it's something that we get to the root of the heart of how he feels about himself through an animal.
absolutely, yes. That strong symbolic connection there is really good, and I guess he thanks the goat at the end by giving him that jersey, in that
Yeah.
sense. So that's a really good foresight and creativity to make that happen. Yeah, just a couple more questions before we're done. Uh, do you speak Swahili? If not, how did you deal with the language barrier in creating this film?
Sure. So I actually don't speak Swahili. I spoke some basic phrases. They actually do say Hakuna Matata, believe it or not, and it does mean no worries.
Okay.
But Jambo is hi. I learned some basic things to help get me through. Thank you, please. Quiet is a really good one when you're filming. But the way I did it is I wrote the script in English, and we had various production coordinators who could translate and work with the children for us. Now, some of the children spoke English too. So when we rehearsed, I told them what they were going to be doing, and they translated it into their own words, which was really helpful because when they were speaking Swahili, it wasn't read off the page. It was just what they said because they were really using their own way of phrasing things. And that really helped with the performance, because I think if we'd written down Swahili script, they'd have really focused on getting every single word right. And so actually there's very few lines of dialogue in the film. And so luckily we did well. And we had someone listening just to check they were saying more or less what we needed them to say. And when it came to edit, I had translations written out so I could edit easily and make sure I had all the script where I needed it to be. So it was another challenge, but actually, funnily enough, having the children translate into their own language or into the Swahili was actually the making of their performances, because they felt ownership over what they were saying.
That's remarkable. It's really great how you conceived this, how you shot it in a short period of time, edited it. But as people who are filmmakers out there all know, that a lot of work goes on well before the actual production and afterwards too. So with that said, before we let you go, what's next for you? HBO actress, can you tell us a little bit about what's coming up for you and what we can see?
Yeah, I mean, I've been an actress for, I don't know, 15 years now, and I was working in LA, but then I got a job, which is this new HBO series for the Nevers, which is very exciting, and it's about a group of Victorian women with superpowers. And it's sci-fi, and it's set in the olden days, and it's very exciting and quite dark and quite funny. My character is quite funny, and so we've been filming that on and off for about a year because we had to stop for the pandemic. And it's a huge production. I mean, vast. Like, I can't even tell you how many millions they're throwing at this amazing show. And we It will come onto HBO Max sometime this year. I can't give you a date yet, and we're filming some more of it this year as well. So that's all I can say for now. It's been wonderful, but alongside that, I've since written feature films, and you know, I didn't know I was going to end up making MDUDU Boy. I just wrote it for the love of writing and like loving stories, and then making it was just an amazing experience to learn how to fail and what to do wrong and what not to do, and so moving forward, now that I'm making feature films and in development for various, you know, larger productions, I'm more grateful than anything for the first film I ever made, which in some ways is not perfect in many ways, but it taught me the biggest things about making film in terms of what I actually want to do, in terms of how to collaborate and how to put your vision out there and how to write a script. And so I'm really grateful for making the film, because even if you make something and it's an absolute washout disaster, you will have gained so much invaluable experience to just go out and make something. And I'm sure nowadays that people are able to make stuff on their iPhones, and it's really helpful to get that experience and learn what it is to edit. You know, the generation that I'm speaking to now, all of you, you're already way more tech savvy than our generation were at this age. So I'm very excited about what all of you are going to end up making one day.
That's good. That's really, really good information. Oh, just real quick, one last question I didn't get to. How long did it take you to make the film? That one person wants to know. I guess from conception to, you know, the actual final edit.
I wrote it in about 3 days. Then we had some script development over various weeks, but not much work, you know, just changing the script up. And then we had about 2 months of pre-production in the UK. And then we flew out to Kenya for about 2.5 to 3 weeks. I can't quite remember now. And in that time, we had 5 days of location recce's, which is when you're going to find your locations, that simple. Mm-hmm. And then we had 2 days of casting and I think a day of rehearsal. And then off we went, and we had 3.5 days of principal photography. And then we flew home, and then we edited it, which took, you know, several weeks because you're working with an editor, sound, you know, so the whole process took about a year from beginning to end. And that's really normal in film, you know. Yeah. I know many films that have taken 10 years, so
exactly.
We got lucky. Yeah.
Yes, you did. Well, lucky you did, and congratulations on all of your success with this film and your success in acting as well too. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you again, and good luck to all of you. I'm excited to see what you will make in the future.
And thank you to our audience for joining us for this important and invigorating conversation. We ask you to continue to follow us on clevelandfilms.org for more information about the upcoming 45th Cleveland International Film Festival. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.